That's interesting. So I've always tried to figure out what the best thing to set as my game setting, and I'm trying to figure out what you can't do. Programming is like programming something, some obscure weird game, and then I tried games, but games is kind of broad, right? Hashtag games or gaming. That's pretty, or sports or something is pretty. So I try, and a lot of, if you don't have something that is a tag already set up, or a category already set up in Twitch, it won't set it at all. It'll just go, yeah, we don't have that. Hold on a second. So it's very possible that you would like not be able to hit anything. So I thought, well, what the heck? Yeah, I'm creating a football sim. Let's just do football. It took football. Apparently football is a tag. And I was thinking, what game is called football? So they must have like a category and a game category that's just football, because I don't think there is a game just called football. I mean, I could be wrong, but apparently there's... apparently there's some game called football. There's something, either that or just a category they have decided was worth inserting. Okay, so let's see, where was I? Okay, so I was looking at Go testing. I need to start thinking about implementing tests. Now, really all I want to do right now, or I've been trying to do, is just get the APIs to connect. To do their bit, because yeah, you got to run the tests, but I don't know. I'm not totally sure how these go. Now these unit tests look really simple. I mean, I think I could easily get these unit tests in place, which is going to be awesome, because I'm ready to start getting some tests in place. But I got to start having actual code running that's going to go out and get data, pull it in, test data, and then the question is, do I test against real data, or do I test against my made up data? Now, I hate making up data. I think it's a very bad plan. But the one advantage to making up data is you can define exactly the kind of things you expect. The disadvantage to making up data is you might miss things you didn't expect. So you write code that's just using your made up data. Maybe there's some really key items that you haven't tested for and you never catch them. So it's almost like you need to do both. You need to do a live data test, and you need to do your own special test. You create your own conditions. You make sure these conditions always exist, but you also run through maybe a random 50 scenarios within your code. Maybe you run, like say I'm running a simulation. Maybe I run a bunch of sims and I expect these things to happen, or I want, certain conditions not to happen, but maybe I just need to figure out how to grab outliers of some kind, grab something. Because I'm going to start keeping, once I start running my stats table, I'm going to keep all stats. It's going to get crazy. And this is why I'm worried about using Azure. Because I'm going to keep tons of stats. And I don't know how big they're going to get. And I think it could get to be massive. Because I need it. I'm going to need it to catch outliers, to monitor, to also provide the functionality I want in the game. Because I want people to be able to look at their players' career stats and their success at playing stats. And I love stats. I'm a stats guy. It bugs the heck out of me that some games that have a lot of things that would be very useful in knowing if you're... Because like Marvel Snap. I'll take Marvel Snap for an example again, because I played a lot of it. You get 20 or so decks, I think, because you can't create more than 20, I don't think. Some guy had one that said deck 32, and I'm like, how did he create a deck 32? Because I only get 20. So unless he just, deletes one and calls it a new deck, deletes one, calls it a new deck, I don't know. But there's no way to keep track of your stats. Yes, I know there's the downloadable add-ins, but they only work if you use your PC, for one, because the phone ones don't work because you can't. Well, maybe they do on Apple, but on Android, you're not allowed the access. So those little add-ins can't get stats on your play. And of course, you lose those stats every time if you're not paying, you're getting limited stat access. And that might even be a thing I might do, because I want to give stats, but maybe I only give stat access for like your current league, or the last 20 non-league games or whatever. Give certain short-term stats. But if you want like play history stats, I mean, I'll keep all the stats, but then maybe that would be one of the free-to-play, the paywall items, because it's not necessarily, but people like stats. I'm a guy who likes stats. I would probably pay a few bucks a month or whatever it is just to get a full, the real meat of all my stats. And then because I love to build things out of stats. That's why I like this game, because I spent a lot of time working with stats to build all the formulas and how the players are going to come together and how to balance it out to make them look good and how it works. And so to me, that's a big deal. And I know I'm not the only one. There's other people out there who want to see that stuff. And it's not just about seeing it, because a lot of times that stuff's useful, right? You're like, okay, so these things matter to how my game plays, And they may not have the things I have, or maybe they won't even care, because I'll be looking at it over the course of everybody's games, and I'm going to run a bunch of these tests that at certain times, maybe at down times, when there's not very many people on, I'll have my tests process through all the data and just kind of get a bunch of results and kind of see what's happening, read through and kind of analyze and flag things for me and say, hey, we're getting some weird stuff over here. let's make sure we don't get weird stuff in the future. So yeah, there will be some balancing and reconfiguring and things that go on over time. Hopefully I get most of that ironed out during the development phase, but that's why you got to write the tests. You got to write the stuff that once you start getting things going, I don't want to have to be like, I found a bug in my little prototype here. A team scored a touchdown, but the other team got the extra point. I was like, that's not working right. But I'm not worried about it. It's a prototype. I don't want to spend a lot of time tweaking the numbers and fixing this, that, or the other thing, because I have to. It's more important right now that I get here and get the root working, so that when I'm tweaking what's going to be the end result. Make sure things work. So you got to kind of know when to pull back. And it doesn't mean I won't fix some stuff on the prototype, because I feel like it could be useful later. Like some of this UI stuff, this is probably going to be, over time, an evolved version of the final web features. Now, the web features aren't going to be as robust as the mobile features, because it's going to be kind of a different tool, but uses the same system. Because you can do more, and it's going to look better, and it's going to be more robust, and it's going to be the same. It's going to be a little bit more interesting. And obviously, I don't even know what the paywall options are going to be on the web part, but even that's going to have, there will be paywall options. It's got to be a make a money game, right? I can't keep trying to feed off of people providing me money through Indiegogo. Right now, I'm going to be launching an Indiegogo just to get developing on this, and once it launches, it's got to pay for itself. I mean, really, it's like any product that you develop, right? But at the same time, I can't make a game that is not fun to play, even for those who are free. I want, if the first 10,000 downloads are only free people and they don't pay for anything, I may have to look into that. But hopefully the game is enticing enough that people will go, I want to see this game stay alive and keep getting better and better and better. And hopefully they will want to contribute. In the same way, I'm hoping somebody wants to see the game come into existence and is willing to help me out on the Indiegogo campaigns. Because honestly, I don't want to keep looking for work, because I want to do this. This is my work. This is what I want to do. And I believe I can make a great game, but I'm going to need, people who, and I don't want people, helping me out that can't, shouldn't. it's like me. I shouldn't do certain things. I shouldn't spend certain money. I mean, there's generosity. It's one thing. That's, you give money where you can, but I certainly do. But at the same time, you need to pull. You can't do stuff that's not helpful to you. And this is really, it's nobody's problem that I'm unemployed. So they got to do it out of their desire to see the game. And I don't want you to do it because I'm unemployed. I want you to do it because you want to see this game come into existence. And the only way that's going to happen, like anybody, they got to be able to not be stressed about outside life, to be able to work on whatever they're working on. So, like people won't go work for AT&T or any other company out there if they're not paying them enough to feel like, okay, I can live off this. And that's the end goal, right? You want to be able to feel comfortable with what you're doing. This way you could focus on the task. And this is going to be good. I'm telling you, this is going to be a good game. Just have faith. And if you want it to be out there, I just ask that you consider donating. I will eventually. I don't have any specific. I haven't added any. What do you call it? A Patreon specific things, or and you can tip on my. Is it Restream? No, Stream Elements. I have all those things on there if you want to do that instead. I mean, I don't care. However somebody wants to back. And again, just follows and subscriptions do it too. I mean, they help because it brings my level of viewership up, and that helps me to bring more people in that might be able or interested in helping out. So that's a way to help out. It's all ways to do it. So it's not all about funds. I mean, it's all about getting this thing done, and I hope I get that chance. But we'll see. We're going to keep plugging away. I don't have another job yet, but I'm hoping, I have to keep looking. I've got a number of new applications out, new contacts that have said that they would get my name out underneath other management. And when you're trying to get jobs at bigger companies, it takes weeks, if not a couple of months, to even get a job, even if you get into the process. And that's if I can get through their technical tests. There are 3 or 4 layers of binary trees and arrays and whatever. And I don't study for those things because I hate it. It's boring. It sucks. I know I figured out if the code requires it because that's interesting, building something out of it, not just some random, if you have this, that, and that, go figure this out. I'm like, okay, and you've got 20 minutes starting now. What are you doing? How are you doing it? Are you sure? You sure you want to do it that way? I'm not sure if that's the way you want to do it. Why are you doing it that way? It's like, it's like, I'm just trying to solve your problem, man. I do stress out on tests. It's goofy. I think a lot of people do, and it sucks because I've got 30 years of development experience, and I know I can figure out almost anything. But that's not what they care about. They only want your experience for the purposes of calling you. Once they talk to you, they throw all that away. They don't care about your experience anymore. They test you, and if you can't pass the test, then they don't care. This guy don't know anything. There's no way he's going to be able to work. You're dumb. It's insulting almost that they think that. How is Stop it. I've had this argument with myself before. I say myself because nobody's really ever chimed in, but I'm just saying I'm gonna. If I could change the industry, I would. There's that's just wrong. There's got to be a better way. It's got to become a norm somehow that developers could build a portfolio that I know companies own their code. They can't give away their code. I know there's that, but there's got to be a way. Companies don't have any interest in helping employees be marketable. They don't care. But I think if they did care, they could sanitize code, say, hey, this is you can't tell what it's used for, but like certain complex modules or certain thises or that's that return, that somebody could package up as part of their portfolio. This is something I did, snapshot, keep it. A lot of companies lock down their stuff so hard you can't even get crap off of the screen. You can't screenshot of an image of something you've done. You can't do anything. You can't build a portfolio. Now, granted, somebody could go out there and steal code, I guess. I mean, some go out to the internet and ask AI, how do you do this, and paste it on something and hope it works. I mean, I think if AI is that available and that functional, then great. Hire the coder, let him go out and use AI. If he knows how to use AI well enough to make something happen, the point is that that person's capable. He knows how to, whoever could go out and make your work get done. That's what you want, right? You want a developer who understands the paradigms and the functionality and is able to go out, figure out the process, and get the job done. As I'm going to do with this game. I'm going to get it done, assuming I have the bandwidth to do it. It's going to happen because I'm determined. So anyway, let's keep going. I got to get this microservices up and running. I kind of went through one guy's microservice tests, and I'm hoping I can get some more through. Oh, the Broncos played them all. They got to beat the Colts. So how's my team doing right here? They just lost 21-19. Stop it, guys. Although they did, it was probably more like 21-8. It's probably more like 22-18 because somehow Denver got an extra point that belonged to the Colts. That's what I told you. It had a weird bug. I'll fix it someday. And trust me, I won't have that stuff. That stuff won't be happening in the final version. I did just whip this thing out. I mean, this took me 3 weeks. And some of the graphics stuff is new, but a lot of it was just behind the stuff, seeing the scenes plays. And then I spent a lot of time. I spent about 3 weeks getting all of the play stuff working, the simulation, but the UI stuff took another couple of weeks to kind of get that going. So, all right, I'm down to 45 minutes. Let's go see if I can get some more microservices guidance. Go microservices. Go microservices developer, plural site. Video of Go microservices. Let's go see what this says. Why does Bing doesn't believe in letting you go to YouTube? You have to actually go to YouTube. If you're using Bing, it's like, oh, you don't need that. We could just give you those videos. It's like, I don't want them on your service. I want them on YouTube because that's where they are. Wait, I didn't even know Craven was out. Craven was out? Oh, jeez, I gotta see this. Why was Craven pulled? No. Right.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to Everything Always. My name's Michael Roman, aka Allfires, and I can't say what we're going to talk about today is a complete shock. Sony has to understand that there are consequences for making movies like Morbius and Madam Web, and it doesn't matter if they're related to Spider-Man or not. After a while, people are just going to stop coming. Now, some of you may have seen the headline already, but if you haven't, apparently Craven was pulled from a quarter of the theaters it was set to go live in, as per usual Sony releases in the United States. And while this will impact its bottom line, there are some other and more troubling numbers, like the rumored box office tracking that's being thrown around, that actually spell a miserable future here for Craven the Hunter. And again, while this movie may be one of the better offerings of a villain that doesn't include Spider-Man, unfortunately, it may be suffering because of some of the previous installments. We're going to break down exactly what's happening, and
why do people think that? I mean, it's rare, very rare, for Marvel or DC to create comics that are solely based on a villain. You know why they don't do that? Because people don't want a comic based solely on a villain. Just a bad guy wreaking havoc for an entire book. No, there's a reason why novels rarely are written where the bad guy wins. It's rare. I mean, they exist, but it's rare. and it has to be a special book. It's got to be a suspenseful. It's got to drive you thinking why. And then a lot of times sequels come out where the bad guy ends up losing because ultimately people want to see that guy lose. But a lot of time, there are times when it's so rare. In comic books, you generally don't want to see the bad guy succeeding or being the only story. You want to see who is going to be his yang, the yin and yang. I mean, who's the mortal enemy? I mean, when a hero comes out, you rarely see a hero book, a hero movie, hero book, where there isn't a villain. So why are you making movies with just villains? Those guys out there, they show you how he went from being a good guy to a bad guy, but then they continue to tell the story. Okay, we understand this, but then it goes on to see all of the terrible things. Where's the hero to this character? Nobody wants to see that. And then they wonder, why are these movies failing? The character's very interesting. Oh, but wait, he's a villain. People don't want to see villains without a hero. The same way they don't... generally, a hero would be boring if there were no villains to fight, right? I mean, what good is Spider-Man or Superman? I mean, what the heck would he be doing? He'd be bored out of his mind. All that power and nobody to do? I mean, what? Go hang out at carnivals? Showing off his super strength? I mean, what do you do if there's no villain? It's like... I don't know. It's... You need an opposite. And people don't... And these movie theaters, Sony especially, doesn't seem to get it. They keep creating villains. People aren't going to see Venom because they want to see Venom. He's cool, yeah. They want to see Venom go up against Spider-Man. And only because Venom's kind of an anti-hero that he kind of sort of gets away with it. In the same way Punisher is kind of an anti-hero, where he's kind of goodish. So you can give him a little leeway. But, I mean, yeah, look, even the great villains, Dracula, Frankenstein, who's just a misunderstood monster, werewolf, yeah, they're the stars of the movie, but they lose. That's the thing. Villains lose. These movies, the villains aren't losing. They're just the Joker, Kraven, Morbius. These guys aren't losing because they haven't met the hero, and they're not showing you the hero. And they have Venom 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Morbius, Kraven, and they're gonna have sequels of those. And it's like, where's the hero? Back to it. I don't care anymore.
Microservices in Go. The answer is not a lot. I mean, what I use at the moment is I'm using Visual Studio Code, and I'm using
what did he say?
A Windows machine. That's right. That might sound like heresy to some folks, but I am using a Windows machine. Let me explain why. So, Visual Studio Code first. Visual Studio Code's a really nice tool. It's free. You can get it on any platform, Windows, Linux, Macintosh. It'll run on Chrome OS with Crostini. It's just a really nice, versatile tool. I've recently switched over to using VS Code from what was Vim, which I've been using for a number of years. And the sort of the main reason why I've started to do that is through...
All right, I get it. You're using VS Code, so am I. Let's go. Let's get moving. I understand.
The Go language support for Visual Studio Code, and that gives me things like IntelliSense, and it gives me the ability to debug, which actually is a really nice feature.
Still talking
Long
about VS
gone
Code?
am I with format print line. It's from golang.org, and it's available for well, pretty much everything. Raspberry Pis, Windows, Linux, Mac OS, you name it.
Okay, so we're still talking about that.
In production, I think it's wonderful. It's really, really worth learning if you haven't already done so. We're going to cover a little bit of Docker in this and maybe in a few weeks or so, but by all means have a play with that. I've got some coffee.
Now this guy, already, I can tell I might like this guy. Now I'm hoping he's very helpful, but unlike Tiago or whatever I was doing before, he talks slower. He gets to, he's obviously he hasn't gotten to the point, but I have that same problem. But I can kind of go on about something, but I think he might be better because he's easier. I feel like his pace is going to be easier to follow.
As well, I do love coffee.
Dude, look at that coffee. You just drank some coffee, but it was like this. Was it an espresso?
We have all of that out of the way. We've got a little bit of intro on the sort of the tooling I'm using. I can see a couple of you there have joined the live share as well. Welcome, Arnold and Ivan.
Live share?
But let's look at what it takes to build a service. So we're building a service in Go. So I'm going to just
I've already gone through and I've built what is mostly a functional service, right? I've gone through, built the gateway. I've created the API stuff, which I haven't actually created an API yet. He's going into that in a future thing. But like I said, he was really hard to follow, and I'm not sure I want to go pay his $14 a month. It's not that much. In fact, I would probably swing it if I felt like he was my only option, but I got to check out some others. Plus, I feel like if I go over a little bit more on a beginning phase, I can maybe manipulate what he's doing using a different one of my services. 'Cause I got to make like 5, 6, 7 services, so I can try how he does it, and hopefully I can get something going. And build more familiarity in my own mind. Maybe I'm hoping he'll explain some of the functions we're using. Because there's a lot of, microservices functions happening here that I don't know. Because I've never seen them before. I can make out what write error is and, some of this stuff. What is path value? Path value returns a value for the named path wildcard in the servmux pattern that matched the request. It returns the empty string if the request was not matched against a pattern or there is no such wildcard in the pattern. So basically, he's pulling from whatever the response, the user ID, which is pretty simple. But I'm cool. It's cool that it showed that, but not all these do that. Like there's some of these. For one, this OMS Proto, and I bet you this guy might not use it. I get the feeling that this is an add-in that's saving you time with Go. Because what this is doing when you run it is it translates this into this. And this. Look, it's doing all this other stuff, creating all these functions and methods. And look at all that code. And I'm not sure what all that is. Store message, message state of, proto message. But this is all the Go functionality. And this proto is doing that for you. Get mini left, get leading by. I don't even know what all these functions are. Get distance, get ID. Oh, this is my stuff. Get leading by. That's my that's my game state stuff. Get minutes left in half. Get minutes left in game. Oh, this is weird. Game situation. Oh, right. Because my game situation has the game plan, and that's what you're going to need when you're building a game plan. You're going to need all those things. So they're the situations. Yeah, I get it. Okay, so I know. I had to remember what I was doing because I was like, why are these all weird and formatted like this? Once I started recognizing the names, I was like, oh yeah, that's mine.
In my main.
But it's still all this.
So the first thing at the top
is simply this translated into more code.
.go is always going to be the package, and this is package main because it's my main executable. What I need also is a func main. So this is the main entry point for your Go application. Now, nothing much going to go on there, so there's nothing working in there. But what I want to do is I want to create a web server. So in Go, what I can use is the HTTP package. And the HTTP package has actually got a huge amount of capability for building your own web services. It's very sort of comprehensive. That the absolute basics of creating a sort of a web service is to use HTTP, listen, and serve. And this is a method.
I got like two. How old is this? If things get really old, it could be a problem. Because see, this is 4 years old. Things change so fast. 4 years old, eek. Could be a problem because the versioning and the updates. I mean, even with the guy I was just watching, I had to write something different because they had deprecated what he was using, and his was 4 months old. Ugh. That's a problem. 4 months old, and he already had deprecated. This guy's got 4 years old. How old is his stuff? See, he does a lot. I wonder if I should... How old is the latest one? Like, if I was to go look at this one... How old is this?
This was my life before Monday Dev.
It's still 4 years ago.
And this is my life now. Monday Dev allows me to develop without any distractions. Everyone involved is working on one platform. So it's easy to connect with each other. Let's see how it works.
Are the responses?
It all starts with
5 months ago. This guy
connects developers,
was using it 5 months ago. So it's kind of important to know who's still using it, because if it's too old and nobody recent is using it, it's because they're finding it's not current. See, these are like 4 years. So let's say if I sort, can I sort by newest? 5 months. 5 months ago is the most recent anybody's used. Client start. Thank you very for the tutorials. I got a self-confidence because of this. For those who are getting deprecated warnings for gRPC with Insecure, you can use like this. Creds, Insecure, new credentials. See, that's one of the ones I got. It was Insecure. And I think that's kind of sort of close to what I actually did. But that was 1 year ago. It's close. Like if I go look at my gRPC, was that the one? It's it's Gateway. Oh, here it is, yeah. So I went with Con Air gRPC new client, which was the with transport credentials, which is this. So I said gRPC new client because that was the one I followed. It seemed to work. All the code ran, maybe. But this one says dial, but dial also shows up not great. So I don't know what he's got going. gRPC with Insecure. But yeah, with transport credentials, I am using this, and then the creds, Insecure, new creds. So I don't know if it's different. I'm gonna try to keep going with it. I think it could. Hopefully, it's not a lot.
Creates one place where we can all collaborate. Our daily stand-ups got so much better. The team loves the new Kanban sprint view and burn down chart. Now we can easily see our progress, bottlenecks, and
how long are his things?
Of capability
40 minutes. Okay, so let's see if we can get through this. I'm gonna have to skip a couple.
It's very sort of comprehensive. That the absolute basics of creating a sort of a web service is to use HTTP, listen, and serve. And this is a method, a function on net HTTP. And it takes two parameters. So we've got an address string, and we have handler.
I don't think I have a list.
So I'll explain these two. So firstly, the address. So this is the bind address. So I want to bind this to every IP address on my machine at port 9090. So I can use this syntax here, you see there. I have colon 9090. If I wanted to explicitly bind it to an IP address, I could have typed something like this, 0.0.1. So I could have bound it to localhost on port 9090. But I just want every IP, right? And the second parameter here is the handler. So we're going to ignore this for now. And so Edwin's asking if I'm going to talk about CI. I will indeed. I have a full example of running through continuous delivery. So the intention is that this is not a one-off. This is going to be maybe 2 30-minute lectures per week, and we are going to go through everything. We're going to show you the basics. We're going to show you how to deploy your applications,
I hope this guy finishes.
how to test them, how to link them together.
Maybe by the time I've gone through this, I will be an expert
in
as
well as
I'm going to have to skip
services,
forward to some things to keep things moving.
building caching, reliability,
maybe even do some of this
Kubernetes,
while,
some service mesh.
I'm not online, which I will do. I do a lot of these. Sometimes I have these running.
But in this one, we're just
while I'm working out in the mornings, and I'm coding at the same time. So it's like I do a set, and then I'm trying to follow, and then
server.
Time's up, go do a set,
literally
come back.
All I need to do to create a web server. And we can
it's kind of
test that out.
2 minutes at a time. But
So
I have it running.
if I run this, go run main.go, the server is running. So if I go into another terminal window, whoa. Oh, I see what it's doing. Sorry, it's completely throwing me there. New terminal window there, and I curl localhost 9090, and let me just put that into verbose mode. That's worked, but it's given me a 404 because, well, there's nothing really going on. So how do we make things happen? How do I handle requests to that very, very simple
So he's
HTTP
explaining
server?
it, which I like, but also I'm done with that part. I want to move on. I mean, it's like I do kind of need to know how it works. But
so let's look at a really, really basic HTTP handler. And to create a really, really basic HTTP handler, again, I can use the net HTTP package, and I'm going to do HTTP dot handle func. I'm going to give it a path, and I'm going to give it a function. So when a request comes in that matches this path, it's going to execute this this function. And the function signature is HTTP response writer and an HTTP request. So we'll look at these parameters in a little bit, but for now, this is kind of what's going to happen. So I will look at some of the Go frameworks as well. We're just kind of covering the standard package in the sort of the first couple, but I'm a big fan of a library called Gorilla. So we will be looking at Gorilla for a lot of the RESTful stuff. We're also going to be looking at gRPC. All right, so I've written my handle.
Gorilla.
So let me just log something. So I'm just going to log.println. Got to be hello world.
It's funny, even in London, man. Even the coders in London use hello world. This guy's in London. It's like hello world. It's universal. It should be hello universe. I mean, I guess everybody's in the world, so I guess that counts. But still, it's Hola mundo. That's what it's in Mexico, right? I want to see something. HTTP dot handle func. There it is. What do you know, man? I'm not going to mess with my code here. I do kind of want to get through his thing because I feel like it's going to be helpful.
Anybody who's interested there. So a serve mux. So ServeMux, as it says in the documentation, is responsible for redirecting paths. So you map a function at a path, and ServeMux will determine which function gets executed. So in the HTTP package, there is a default ServeMux. And if you don't set anything else up, this is the one which is used by the other sort of functions, such as HTTP handle func, this convenience method. So handle func. So what handle func actually does, and again, let's look at the documentation, registers the handler to the given pattern to the default ServeMux. And then we've got an example.
So that is actually ServeMux, so that's what I'm doing here.
What we did there, right?
We're just kind of bypassing it.
ServeMux is actually an HTTP handler. It does sort of a little bit more than
handle func.
Than that. Oh, if I go here, it's actually, in terms of an object, an HTTP request multiplexer. So you can create your own here, and it's got methods like handle. So handle will register a handler, HTTP handler, for a path. And what's a handler? Well, a handler in Go HTTP is just an interface. So any strut which has a method serve HTTP.
Now you're gonna write this app and you don't even know how to code in Go? Yes. Trust me, it's gonna take a few weeks, maybe even points, or I'll be a couple of weeks here and there. But trust me, you ramp up. I mean, all these languages, they're a little slow at first. You get going if they're easy. This doesn't look that complicated. I mean, I've done a lot already. I've got this kind of working. I just, for my own edification, I like to learn kind of a little bit more what's going on. Let the experts speak. That'll help me more in the future when I'm trying to understand when I'm debugging and I got this problem or whatever. True, AI could probably point out errors, but if I don't understand it, it's going to be hard to go, hey, I can optimize this by doing this, or whatever. I need to change this or that, or I need to copy this or redo it in a different way because this is doing this and I needed to do that. So that kind of is what I'm doing here and learning these, because I do need to write additional pieces. I need to start writing. I might have to start creating my game plan and my leagues and my modes. A lot of I could just copy what I did for game plan, right? I mean, I can go through here and basically copy game plan into all of my other pieces. But I need my simulation. Right now is the simulation and the game plan and even the player. See, I'm trying to figure out players. I think is just going to be a feedback editor to players, the cards, what you can do, what you can see, what the players are doing as far as training and what their stats are, and we're just feeding back information. But the simulation is going to the simulator is actually going to be the piece that interacts. I think it's going to be like the parent component to how the simulation is processing. Okay, so when a game is called, we're going to provide the user ID and maybe whatever the game information. It's all going to go through the simulator. And the simulator is going to go, oh, okay, well, I have this expectation of me. They're going to click on something, simulate. It's going to pass back the teams that are playing, and it's going to fire off the simulation. Those teams, whatever information that needs to work. So we'll probably end up having things like the teams and the user IDs. Now, even the teams that you're playing that are going on autoplay are going to have user IDs. Now, some of those user IDs might be computer IDs. It doesn't matter because there's going to be computer IDs out there to play against, right? And it might even generate. I'm going to have systems in here to, when you create a league, while it's going to create users, and some of them aren't going to be like. I'm not going to. I guess theoretically. You could have one AI handling all the league user IDs. One user playing 10 billion teams, and it's just got all the players, all the teams, and all the leagues, and it just keeps loading them up. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to wonder if that would be flawed. I mean, it might be easier for me to manage, but if I allow for a user, like a master user, whatever, I can call him the commissioner. He holds all the other teams, and but yeah, no, he has to create his own other teams, other leagues. Well, even if a player has teams, he's going to create every time the team gets generated or built for a league. So I think every team in every league is going to be a new team. And then that league just tracks. So a league has teams, they get created for the team or for the league. And then those stats and everything get associated to that league ID. So the question will come, I think ultimately a simulation, all it's going to want is the user ID. It's probably going to need the user ID and the team IDs, because every team is going to naturally be on a league, or they're going to be associated with whatever they're associated to, but they'll have a team ID. And once that team does what it does, it goes against that team, those stats get stored for that game. So we'll have a game stats table, which will just store all the games and all the stats. It'll be a massive monster table that's just going to hold all the games, all the stats. I don't really want to create. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Why would I? I may end up creating some cube structures in databases. I don't know. I don't know what a NoSQL can do, but it's possible I might create some special data sets that, like, the players, all their stats that they have specifically might be generated or separated into some kind of special precompiled view, so that it acts kind of like a table that can be much quicker pulled rather than trying to read from that massive thing all the time. It might regenerate on a regular basis, but you know, because if that player doesn't play all the time and he comes to the game and he wants to look at his stuff, you know, having it wait forever, it'd be nice to have that stats ready, and even regenerate the stats during game time. We're just always trying to keep it going while games are in progress, so that it doesn't that stuff's ready to go when you're ready, and it just creates that kind of precompiled, ready to go view. I don't know how if that's. I mean, I think that's better in performance, but I don't know how well that's done in MongoDB. I don't know MongoDB, and creating those kind of, what do you want to call them, data structs. How do they store? Is it a good idea? I don't know. So it's possible, not a good idea. I don't know. I'm probably not getting through this guy thing today, but I am just trying to.
With HTTP response writer and request as a signature, implements the interface handler. And then in my other terminal window, I'm going to curl that. So curl localhost 9090. So you can see there, it's curling, and it's calling hello world as a log. Now, if I do hello localhost goodbye, and again, look at my log output, you see it's doing now goodbye world. And the reason for that is...
So he uses handle func to cause these. That's kind of cool. And I'm sure Server Mux kind of does something similar. I do like It's good to know these other functions anyway, because there's probably a good chance I'm going to be needing them at some point. But what did he call it? Godzilla? Is that an extension? Can I install Godzilla? What is Godzilla? Huh. I don't see Godzilla. Wasn't it, or is it Go some, what else did he say? Godzilla. I thought he said Godzilla. Golang, visual checks. Huh. I thought he said goes gRPC. Over the weeks ahead. This is going to be good. I think I like this guy's stuff. Even though I haven't let him talk for more than 5 minutes.
An HTTP response. So it has a number of methods on it. Let's look at those methods.
See, another good thing.
So,
the other guy didn't go over anything. He didn't explain anything. I don't even know these other methods because all I know is what's there.
Response writer.
Read response.
Ooh, if I can get my browser to work. Come on, browser, work. I'm zoomed in way too far here, you see. Response writer. There we go. Type response writer. So it can do things like writing the headers, the response body, status codes, and things like that. It's an interface. The actual concrete implementation is injected by the Go server when it calls your function. And then we have the request. So the HTTP request is literally the HTTP request. Yeah, right. So it has things like the path, what the method is, what is the body which was passed to the caller to the server, and some various other things such as the HTTP version
go over creating the API
and stuff like that. So we can use these two objects to read and write to our functions.
He just doesn't have it here.
So let's look. So the first thing we want to do is we want to read from the body, right? And it genuinely doesn't matter, but my OCD kicks in. So I'm going to read everything from the body, and I'm reading it into the variable D, which is a data, slice of data.
So 4 years ago, probably doesn't even have Copilot, which is good because the guy using Copilot was driving me bonkers with his stuff popping up all the time.
I'm going to handle this error in a little bit, but first I just want to show you this in action. So again, let me just log. I'm just going to print F. I'm going to say data percentage S. So I'm just going to print the data as a string, and I'm going to do D there. Whoops. There we go. I'm going to make sure that that has a new line on it as well. So let's run our code. And let me just sort that out. Right, run our code. So to pass the data to the with curl, what I can use is I can use dash D. What did I press to make that go into full screen? Because I really do not want it in full screen. Well, this is this is an interesting thing. I've managed to make VS Code go into full screen mode, and I don't know how to get rid of it. So I'm just going to.
I don't know how to do that either.
Right.
I didn't even know you can make it go into full screen. I mean, there's the little square at the top, but his doesn't have the little square unless it's hidden.
In not full screen mode. I apologize anybody who was on the live share.
See, now it's full screen, but it's not full screen.
Kicked you off there. But we're nearly at the end of the show. We'll get that sorted for next time. Okay, so we're going to print that data out. So let's run our application.
I like
Go.
This guy. I just think he's going to be
main.go.
He's just more personable.
And again, in our new terminal window,
he's like human.
We're going to curl.
Yeah, that's probably the other guy was just
verbose mode with some data. Let's pass Nick.
I was like, okay, I get it. You're good at this.
1990. So again, if I look here, you can see data Nick, because this log.printf has written the data. So the body, which was passed as part of the HTTP request, I've read it using ioutil read all from the request body. And then I've just written that through log.println. But what we really want to see is, how do I write that back to the user? So how do I do that? Well, how I do that is by using the response writer. Right. So response writer.
I do that, response writer. Because we're doing a request.
Is
and you got to do a request.
Now,
you have to do a response.
what you will find is response writer has a method.
So basically what they do is they send in information. They go,
and that
I want to run a sim.
Write is
request sim response
is to return
data.
This corresponds to IO writer, which means that I can use a response writer anywhere where I could use a response.writer. So, for example, format.
What I am curious about though,
fprintf
is
allows me to use
the system is doing
an IO writer.
It's going to have to do
such
kind of
as HTTP response writer,
because I want to call
with
run sim
format
right?
string. So I now say
and then that sim
hello,
processes, and what's it do? Just start sending data back.
Percentage
and you catch it.
Wow, I can't.
Yes, it does. Now you just keep sending responses.
Where have you
kind of
got
doing a
percentage
loop. You're running the sim
and my data.
See, I got to figure this stuff out. So I probably just keep sending back.
So what
responses.
this is now going to do,
and then when the response
is
gets
it's going
there,
to do exactly the same thing as I was doing before. It's going to print hello,
response,
whatever is read from the data.
Kind of
but this time, rather than it printing to the log, I'm going to print it back to the response writer, which means it will return to the user.
Give me the next line.
Let's run that again.
They talk back and forth, I would imagine, somehow.
So we've got curl, verbose mode. I'm passing the data of Nick to localhost 1990. And you see there in the response, it says, hello, Nick. Let me just get rid of verbose. You see there, hello, Nick. I could say, hello, world. Or I could say, hello, YouTube. And in a really kind of simple, very few lines of code that I am reading and writing to the response, I've created an HTTP web server, actually a relatively performant one as well. I have to kind of add, and we'll look at some of the more performance tuning aspects in the next show, but really, really simple, really, really, really easy. I haven't had to import anything or download anything or anything like that other than the Go standard library. So let's just finish up this example, and then we'll kind of leave it for today. But I want to kind of just mention one last thing there. So we have this read all. Read all returns an error. Good Go programming, defensive Go programming is never just swallow error messages like that. So I want to handle that error. So if error,
because he didn't want to deal with the error, but that's what the underscore does. That's one of the things I figured out or learned. Because if you don't know Go, like me, or I'm knowing it more, learning, the underscore just ignores a return value. It just says, yeah, I don't want to deal with that. So it goes underscore, just throw it away. So he's going to deal with it, which is what he's doing. And that's kind of what I think I have up here. That's con, error, return, this is the new client. I'm trying to see where this thing is it's doing its response, though. handler, new handler, register routes. I'll have to figure out what some of this stuff is doing because I don't know like what register routes is doing. Serve mux. So there's a lot of these things that are using variables that are doing variables. But we got the handler and then we got the serve mux. Serve mux is basically a complex version of handle func, it looks like. It just does more. But you're doing serve mux, it gets the mux back, and then mux gets handled through the register routes. And I'm not sure what's going on there, but that's kind of stuff I'm hoping this guy is going to straighten out for me soon enough. And then I'll understand its flow better and understand, okay, well, this does this and this does that. This is cool just because I like to see both sides of it. And this is one thing the other guy, Tiago, wasn't teaching you. He wasn't showing you how things function. He just said, this is what you need to do to make this happen. And you're like, okay, if you say so. You do it. Hey, it worked. Okay. But do you understand what's going on? This guy looks like he's going to actually show you. He's giving you an idea. These are what the functions are meant to do individually. And then when you implement them later on, you're like, well, this does this and this does this because you know what it does. He told you. And now you can go do it yourself. And I was just racing along to write down what that guy said, and I had no idea what some of this stuff did. And we'll get further along, and he'll go through more. But just to know that serve mux is kind of handle func, so when I see this saying new serve mux, it's doing the same kind of thing. It's just probably doing a little more complex, like register routes is capable to read off of mux, which is whatever serve mux is getting back. And I'm sure he'll get there. But this is cool, and I will start to plug in my own stuff as we get further along. In fact, as I learn more how these are working, it'll be easier for me to go simply back to these code and start implementing leagues and simulator and players. And I'm still trying to figure out the mapping on how the flow of data is going to work, because I need to know what are my encapsulated components. So do players have any... Are players going to provide all their stats and function that maybe when I do the simulation needs to talk to the players component. The players component is going to go, oh yeah, here's the stats for these players, because that's the module or component that's going to get those stats, and the simulation is going to need those stats to execute the simulation. Or is it? Because the simulation's going to say, well, I need to simulate the whole thing, which is kind of what but maybe it's simpler than that, because it all depends on how microservices should work. You want to have them do one job. So is it going to go calculate all the interactions of players? Maybe not. So maybe I have a component that is called a simulator, which will take all the info it needs, create the game state, create all of the individual state information that's necessary, and then send that stuff back to the parent, and the parent pops it out. Because it's quite possible that all this stuff that my VS, I want to have this this function, this whole app that's doing the UI bits that you see down here. Oh, come on. This app that's doing the UI bits down here, it's got to be as dumb as possible. Because if you have your UI do a lot of stuff, every new place that you create is going to have to be recompiled and written to do that same thing. Or, you may have to write it. It's not always a recompile, right? You can't always go straight from a mobile app to a PC app. There's other things that have to happen. Now, maybe you can to some extent. It's still maybe a simple recompile might work in some cases, but if you're doing a web interface that's using different tech like React, because I doubt Unity is going to work in a web browser, but I'm just saying, if you're having multiple resources like that, you got to have the code be as dumb as possible on the front end, just doing what it needs that only it can do, like the rendering and the putting things on the field. That's all it cares about. All your UI should do is get data and put it on the field. It doesn't care what the data is. It just knows where to put it and how to lay it out, and that stuff comes back. And right now, my simulation is all in React, and so like all of the render parts, all the render parts you see should be like you're seeing here. That's why tweaking the render parts isn't that bad. Okay, so it's like, hey, I'm going to show this stuff and we're going to get it. But there is a fair amount of things going on here, like it's calculating who gets the score, who gets all of the change parts and bits, because we run the plays and we call the coach and we're doing all that stuff from here. We get the play result, but it's calculating who the coach is going now. It says call the coach play or whatever it is, special teams play. This is the wrong thing I'm looking at, but this is what I'm talking about. So it calls the coach, which then calls the different plays, and then we take the play results and we put them out. We calculate the score. That's too much. Really, all this should be doing is saying, run this sim, because that's what the player who's the UI, the guy's up there going, I want to run a game sim. I've selected this team or run my league sim, game 1. And it'll go, okay, game 1 is these players will have, maybe in that case, if you're only running, you're going as dumb as that. It doesn't even do the team plays. It goes and looks up the teams. Because you're a league, and you're in a league, and that league says you're playing this. There may be different ways to make the call, but if you just run League A or League 1, Game 1, it goes in there, finds the teams, runs the simulation, sends back the full and ready state. So this doesn't even have to do anything except make the call, get back a play, set these game states. That's all it does. It just sets these game states. There's no calculations. We've already done all the plays, all the values, all the who has what values, the teams involved, whatever. It just comes back and says team 1 score, team 2 score. This is where we are in the field. This is all the information. It updates it straight from the response that comes from the API. The response writer will say, here, this is what you need. Maybe it might have to read it. So there may have to be a read the JSON, feed it out, whatever. There may be that one function. But it knows what it's getting. It gets it, loads it up into these states, and then it updates. None of this stuff. No more calling things, no more anything. It doesn't care about any of that. It's just telling you these are the guys this is the component pieces, and all this goes away. All this stuff goes away. Just call it. Maybe we have a separate function that breaks down the JSON into the bits that we need, loads it into, in fact, that would go away. It'd probably even go farther, go all the way down here. All we'd have is the call, the JSON, the function that loads the JSON date values into the state variables, and that's it. That's all we do. Nothing else. Make a call and read the state variables into these. Nothing new, nothing else. And then we just assume that our data is working correctly in the background, because this is going to be nothing. Now, then we can continue to do edits that continue to improve the UI. But we don't have to do as much. We're just going to take the information, put it out, update the state. We're still going to have to do a lot of the dumb stuff we're doing here to slow it down so that we can read the state and drop it out there. But there won't be any math going on, nothing going into the wrong places, because when it comes back, it's got to be 100% right. So nothing you see here is calculated. It just says, these are the values you need, drop the values. Is it just me, or things getting weird? How come all of a sudden my lines are weird? Oh, they're right now. They were crooked a minute ago. I promise they were crooked. They do get a little weird when I think what it is sometimes this thing is getting big and it pushes the lines off. And I think as this gets bigger, it doesn't push the lines as much. And if it doesn't push the lines, they stay where they're supposed to. Anyway, so yeah, there we go. It's 11:07. I got to stop. I think I'll be back tomorrow. I'm gonna be coding tomorrow, though. I tell you, man, my games are going to suffer. My gaming time is going to suffer. Not really, because I'm playing with a game. I am developing a game that's going to be gamier and gamier all the time. And I'm going to keep breaking up chunks. I'm going to keep going in different spots because I want to get more on here. This is kind of why I want to start getting the coaching profile running. But first I got to get the simulator code into the back end. Then I can start working on the coaching profile, which is going to start being cool. But what I might do too is part of the UI, start making some of these menus start working. Like when you click on coaching profile, start building out the coaching profile page. Now it might not load anything yet because I don't know how much time I want to spend on getting dummy data there, but it'll start being ready because I'm just building the UI bits that are going to want to pull data. We'll get that data and then load them into our UI bits. Same with players and even the account pages. I can start loading that up, start having page parts being ready, and then I can go spend time again on the back end, continuing to improve the back end, and eventually returning data back that I can load into those components. So we're going to keep making progress on that. So you can see I have game simulation, I have coaching profile, which is what I thought would be the game plan. And maybe it is. We could have the coaching profile, then you have the coach, and then you have the game plan as sub menus of coaching. I might not even have it called coaching profile. I may just put a little head that looks like a coach. That's what I was thinking. I think I actually want to just use icons. I know it's lame, right? Maybe when you put your mouse over, it'll go coaching profile. Coaching profile and game plans. I don't know. And then players, and then the account, and whatever other features I decide to add in later. More and more, I'll have menus that just do things that are just there for maybe future placeholders, just so that there's an excitement built on what's going to be in there. And as each thing goes, I'll keep improving and adding and getting cool stuff on here to keep upping the AI ante, and also continuing to work on the back end that's going to feed those things. So stick with me, man. Check out my Indiegogo. Help me finish this if you are so inclined. Otherwise, subscribe, follow, and just hang out, man. Come and say hi. Ask questions. Let me know. If you're into American football at all, if you're an American, I hope you like football at least a little bit. Don't. It's okay if you don't. My own kids don't like football. Can you believe it? I have one son who asks me how the Broncos are doing every now and then. The others could care less. They don't ask. They don't care. Well, one of my other sons will come if I have a Super Bowl party. He'll hang out just because it's fun to be around. But he doesn't really care that much either. But and even the one that asks, he never watches games. I would love to take him to a game, but games are like $200 a piece. And if I could just get him a little excited about football, that would be awesome. But I don't know. Football's it's a sport that, like all sports, takes up time to be. To be honest, I'm a huge fan of the Broncos. I love to watch them play. I like even watching random teams play, but it's just another thing that I got to make time for. So I love playing video games. I love playing Frosthaven. I love painting miniatures. But something's got to give when you're doing something. And this can make a living for me because it's awesome. It's going to be awesome. And it's fun. And I get to take all the things I love, a sport that I really love, turn it into a real thing because I know I can do it. It's not even a question. It's just, can I? Will I be able, given that opportunity? Who knows?